England rugby squad for their tour of Japan and New Zealand has been announced, folks. Let's have a look through the squad. Who's in and who's out? What can we expect for England on this tour? And you guys can let us know your thoughts. They're playing 3 games. First one up in Japan. That one's going to be an interesting one, mainly because they are playing Eddie Jones's Japan side, and he's the former England coach, so that's going to be a little spicy storyline in itself. Then down here to New Zealand to play 2 games, one in Dunedin, where it's going to be pretty brisk. These guys coming down from summer up in the UK will be getting a taste of cold New Zealand weather down in Dunedin, and then it is an indoor stadium though, and then up here in Auckland where the All Blacks haven't lost since the 1990s, so yeah, but new coach in Scott Robertson, so maybe England are able to catch the All Blacks in a bit of transition. We'll kind of have to wait and see. That being said, you do feel like there's a bit of transition in this England rugby squad as well. You know, you're used to seeing guys like Owen Farrell, Courtney Laws, Ben Youngs, the Vunipolas, Tuilagi, Watson. All these guys are not going to be playing for England anymore, as far as I'm aware. I'm not sure about Watson, but certainly all the other guys, their time in England jerseys are done. And then you got a bunch of injuries. Chesham is injured, Genge's injured, George Ford is injured, Danny Care's retired. Yeah, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Elliot Daly, I believe, is expecting a child. He's decided not to tour. So there's a lot of guys who are, form players or experienced players not going to be working their way down here to New Zealand. That being said, of the guys who are selected, Dan, George, and Ogra, those are the hookers. Ogra's the uncapped guy. It may have been Langdon, I suppose, if he hadn't got injured in the final, but Ogra's been in good form when he was playing with Wasps, and now that he's playing in Bristol, which is pleasing. But you would think game time is going to be limited because Jamie George is captain. He will certainly be getting the starts. Pleasingly, though, Steve Borthwick has started to give the reserve hooker a bit more time. He used to really limit the minutes, especially of Theo Dan, back in the day. But in the Six Nations in recent times, he's balanced the minutes between the starting hooker and the reserve hooker a lot more, which is, for mine, pretty pleasing. Not that he needs my thumbs up of approval. Hookers, I've just announced hookers. Props, Baxter, Marler, Rod, Cole, Hayes, and Stewart. So one uncapped guy in Finn Baxter. Bevan Rods and Joe Hayes are the kind of guys in single-digit caps, but then you got Dan Cole with 100-plus caps, 37 years old, and Joe Marler closing on 100 caps, 33 years old. Those are the kind of most experienced guys. So the props are also a mixture of experience and youth, but like I mentioned, it is a bit of a different look with no Alice Genge there. Locks, Coles, Yules, Itoje, and Martin. I like George Martin, man. He properly gives a bit of mongrel. I feel like most fans will be pretty aware with what with Maro Itoje can do, but George Martin gives that bit of extra kind of tackling edge and edge at the breakdown, big cleanouts and whatnot. So pleasing if he gets some game time. And Alex Coles is proper tall timber, 6'9". So certainly adds something when he's playing. Can also fill in the back row too. And Charlie Yules, 30 caps. He's experienced. A lot of tackling in the back row. Cunningham South, the 2 Curry boys, Don Brown, Earl, Roots, and Underhill. A lot of these guys are really high work rate players. The Curry boys especially. Tom's not had much game time, so his inclusion is maybe a little bit surprising, but on reputation, he's obviously a shoo-in, but I think he's only played 1 game this year. Ben Earl has been England's best player, I would say, for 12 months now at test level, so you would feel like he's earned himself that starting spot. There's no Jack Willis, obviously, because he's playing his rugby in France, which is unfortunate, because when you see him playing for Toulouse, he is cracking as well, but then you guys have got a lot of good loose forwards in England. Sam Underhill, big bone crunching tackles you would think will be needed, especially down here in New Zealand. But yeah, I'll be curious to see who plays blindside for this one, because some of these guys are kind of more natural open sides, but we're going to have to wait and see. Backs wise, Mitchell, Randall, and Spencer are the 3 9s. Alex Mitchell has been in phenomenal form for Northampton, so I would expect to see him starting. But then Ben Spencer has also been bloody great for Bath, and those were the sides who played in the Premiership final. So, yep, you got good choices there, either which way you go if you are Steve Borthwick. And then the question at 10, with no Farrell and no Ford, becomes Smith or Smith, Finn or Marcus. Do you want Marcus? He's got more experience, he beats more defenders, he gets more run meters, he's certainly the kind of more flair player of the 2 Smiths. Or do you go with Finn? He kicks a bit more from hand, he's got a better goal kicking percentage this year, he tackles a bit better, so maybe more of a team man, less of an individual man, but both guys bring absolute X factor to the game. But Finn Smith is lacking in experience with only 2 test caps, kind of throwing him down in the deep end in New Zealand might be a bit of a big ask, but then if he plays with Alex Mitchell, the 9, that's a good kind of bit of chemistry between them. And if you're good enough, you're good enough. It doesn't matter who your opponent is. So that is certainly a question. Midfield, Dingwall, Lawrence, Northmore, and Slade. Northmore is the uncapped guy of that lot, but he's 27 years old, so certainly not inexperienced. Henry Slade is, along with Spencer, the oldest of the backs, but he's been in great form for Exeter and certainly has got a big boot on him as well if they kind of want to go for a bit more kicking. And then the outside backs, Faye, Waboso, Freeman, Roebuck, Slightholme, Carpenter, Furbank, and Stewart. I'll be curious to see how they go at fullback because it looked like Freddie Stewart had basically a lock on that 15 jersey, but then in the Six Nations, they switched things up and started going with a bit more Furbank. Certainly Stewart's great in the air, but again, maybe less able to bring other guys into the game like Furbank is, or you could always chuck Stewart in the wing if you want to kick some high balls to him, but they've not really opted for that in recent times. And then you've got like guys like Faye was like an out-and-out winger, proper devastating ball carries, big on the defenders, beating. Tommy Freeman's been in cracking form, getting tries, setting up tries, likewise beating defenders. And then uncapped guys, Roebuck, Slightholme, and Carpenter. That's 3 of them. So there's really a lack of experience in the outside backs. Like Faye Wabosa's got 3 caps, Freeman's got 8, 3 uncapped guys, and then Furbank's got 9. So Stewart's the only guy in double-digit caps in the outside back. So there certainly is inexperience there, but there is form, which is pleasing. Like Carpenter busts tackles. Roebuck gets himself into a lot of space. So yeah, there's certainly some excitement, I would say, about the way these kind of outside backs are lining up. And most of them, barring Furbank, they're less than 25 years old. These guys are all young, quick, agile, strong players. So I feel like Fiuwabosa genuinely brings a bit of an extra power game, just looking at his defenders beating numbers. But yeah, they're all going to be a handful if they do get a chance. Averages of the backs also kind of 24.5, still pretty young. Average caps though down at 12.5, so certainly a lot less experience in the backs than in the forwards. I believe Caden Murley is injured. Max Malins and Hassel Collins seem to be still on the outer. Van Portfleet as well is also an interesting one in terms of a guy who seemed to be one of the kind of established 9s, but he finds himself on the outer. Obviously, he has a bit of time in and out with injuries and whatnot. But yeah, it is a pretty interesting looking England squad. There's certainly some guys are unlucky. Did I mention Langdon got himself injured in the final? Obano got himself red carded in the final. Those guys are pretty unlucky, you would imagine. Did I mention Ted Hill? Unlucky in terms of the form that he's been in. But yeah, Elliot Daly expecting a child, decided not to go. It's a good chance for some of these other guys to show what they can do for England. You would think minimum requirements for this tour is at least a win in Japan and be competitive down here in New Zealand. I feel like if they can go 1-1 down here in New Zealand, win the Dunedin game, then that would be an absolutely successful tour. And if they could go 3 from 3, that would be as good as it gets. But that would be a pretty awful start for the way Razor starts his time down here in NZ. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. If you want England Rugby gear, check out England Rugby Store down in the description. They are an affiliate of the channel. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.